Alrighty, let's get this going. Hello, I'm Kiddo, and if you don't know who Brad is, he is one part of the 2AussieThrifters dynamic duo alongside Jazz. Brad has released over 500 YouTube videos whilst documenting and building a very successful eBay business, selling tens of thousands of items. He first began in his house whilst working full-time, then moved to the garage, and nowadays is working out of a warehouse. He is a highly logical thinker, and I personally think one of his strengths is that of analysis and understanding product research across many niche markets. Brad was one of the first people to ever promote my music in a YouTube video and support me on my music journey. I've really enjoyed being able to witness Brad's story of challenge, growth, and evolution over the years, and I've really been looking forward to documenting this conversation. Brad, how's things? What do you think about that intro?
Firstly, I didn't realize we had 500 videos. That actually just makes me think of like how much random information there is on our channel now. So,
yes, the reps.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I think, it's been a pretty awesome journey, and you've been there from a very early age, very early on in the journey, and
yes, sir.
We've grown together and learned a lot together, and I'm stoked to be here today. So thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. And we keep learning together. So where I wanted to start was, what's one thing from your childhood or teenage years that looking back makes total sense for why you ended up as an entrepreneur?
And we're getting straight into the deep stuff.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to think before, like you sent me a little bit of a list of kind of what we're going to talk about. And I was just like, man, what are those like key moments as a kid? And I think there's kind of a couple that I could kind of think of, like, we've all followed your story and your story about, you want to get your mum out of a certain situation and, lift her up. And I think as a kid, we were always like pretty poor. Like we didn't have a lot of money. Mum was a stay-at-home mum. Dad was working the long hours, all that sort of stuff to get by. And I don't know, mum was always very like thrifty in a way. Like she'd like go door knocking to make like preservatives and stuff like that, trying to like maximize the money that we did have, if you know what I mean. For me, like she'd take us to like garage sales and op shops to buy us clothes because we didn't have like a lot of money. So I think that kind of instilled like a little bit of like trying to game the system a little bit and try and like spend as less amount of money as possible. And then I think through my school years, I was always kind of like, everyone was like, oh, you should be an engineer, or oh, you should be this. There was never anything that I was like, I want to be that. It was just kind of like, I had an understanding that there was something out there for me that was slightly different to everyone else, but I didn't really know what that was at that point in time. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if we put your younger self in a room with you today, what do you think would surprise them the most about your life today?
I think that I own a business, two businesses now. I just think like back at school, there wasn't really many opportunities or education around like running your own business. It's always like, get your grades, get your math skills so you can progress to uni or get a really good job. It was never about like building your own lifestyle and building your own wealth. It was always kind of like, this is the path you follow. And I think that having that understanding that things were going to be different for me kind of just put me in that mindset of wanting to do something different.
Yeah. And so where do you think that understanding came from? Because I know there's some people that feel like that growing up, but they don't follow that voice or that intuition, one might say. So where do you think your understanding to follow that path came from?
I think out of necessity, really. Like when I did the whole corporate job for a period of time, when we moved to Adelaide, I worked in a corporate job for almost 8 years, and I wasn't loving it, and always thought like, there's got to be something better than this. There's got to be something better than getting on a bus at 6 a.m. in the morning and getting home at 6 p.m. at night, and it's dark on both ends because it's winter.
Yeah.
You're not living life. You're just sitting in an office, and it's not enjoyable. You're making someone else money, and realistically, you're just a number. Like you're not doing anything that's like valuable. Well, to me, I wasn't doing anything that was valuable.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a matter of like, I couldn't stay there any longer. It was just at the point where mentally I was just like drained. I had no like drive to stay there. So I had to find a way out. And my way out came in the form of like us already building a business in the background. And then kind of 2 to 3 years before I quit full time, we were like, all right, well, if we put these things in place over the next couple of years, then you don't have to go do that job anymore. So it was just a matter of like ticking those off and really just focusing on
So
what we want to achieve.
absolutely. So I guess where did your confidence come from to leave that full-time job and go all in on eBay? Like, can you walk me through the key moments that led you to that decision?
I think confidence is probably a little bit of an overstatement. I think it's a little bit of naivety. Like you kind of push forward and you kind of fumble through your way through it. And then you realize that, yeah, it's starting to work. The numbers are starting to make sense. And that was what it was really about for us. It was like, all right, Jazz went full-time first because of COVID. And then me, secondly. It was just a matter of like the numbers lining up and then us diving head first and hoping that everything we'd put in place was going to continue to roll and everything was going to continue to make sense.
Yeah. So I guess going back to before we move kind of close to the business is, can you tell me about you playing hockey growing up and how you think that has influenced your work ethic nowadays?
That's a great question. Sport was always for me like something that I took pretty seriously. It was all about like the training and the reps and getting those things in. It was the consistency, the risk and reward of that as well. Like, you know, if you overtrain, you can hurt yourself. But if you train the right way, you can continue to improve ongoing and you can see those like incremental improvements. So I think having a sport at the level that I was at really helped me instill that like, I guess, repetition and routine and putting the reps in to make something work. And showing up even when it was like 40 degrees in Alice Springs and training, running around a wet hockey field. It's kind of, it just set me up for, I guess, where we're now.
Yeah. And so what's a skill or a mindset you developed by accident, but ended up being crucial to your success?
I actually want to say that I'm still developing this and it's only just come recently, I think. And it's come from a place of not being happy of where I was. So recently I've just started like training again and that's something that we've talked about and like I've kind of gleaned off you over the last couple of years and just how you can kind of switch your mindset to point you in a direction that you want to be rather than just accepting how you are now. And I think for me, the mindset that I've really had to develop is like just letting go of the small things and the noise around me sometimes, especially when you have a YouTube channel and you're like front facing. It's really easy to get caught up with that like negative comment or someone misinterpreting something you've done and creating a storyline behind that. And it's a lot harder to just know that you're on the right path, know that you've got the right people around you to succeed. And I think that's something that you've taught me. So thanks for that.
All good. And likewise too, though, like there's been so many things that I haven't thought about that you've really brought my awareness to. And I think that's key is like the importance of surrounding yourself with people that can maybe see things that you don't and are able to speak about that with you and also have the confidence to bring it up with you. Because that's the thing too, is like you can be going so well, but certain people, if you're confident, if you're doing well, if you're really outspoken, some people can feel a little bit hesitant bringing those things to your attention. And so I think it's important, like, and I'm sure you'll agree, is like to have people that can hold you accountable and people that can embrace you for where you're at, but also see how much potential you have too and encourage you to step into that potential.
I think sometimes you have to step outside your normal like high school friendship group to find that as well, because you're not going to find that in people that are going in a different direction to you. You need to find that in people that are going the same direction as you and are ahead of you in whatever that might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, a little bit of a pivot. If I told you had to take a year off your business, starting tomorrow with Jazz, what would you do with that time?
I think that's a pretty easy one for me. It'd be travel. It's something that we've kind of had on the horizon. I've had to keep pushing back and pushing back. And that's not something I'm comfortable with. I'm always about taking action and trying to get stuff done, but circumstances haven't really allowed us to do that. So we are still in the throes of converting a van, even though it's been a very slow process to go traveling. But yeah, I think we'll take a year off, do a lap of Australia and check out this beautiful country we live in.
Awesome. And so how important is it to have a partner that supports you in business and in life? And can you give me an example of a time where Jazz really had your back and supported you?
Yeah, I think it's crucial, whether that's, a partner as in a relationship like me and Jazz have, or someone that you can bounce ideas off of and kind of lift each other up. And, we all have ups and downs. And if you can have someone there that you can lean on at any given point in time and vice versa, it definitely saves you in those difficult circumstances. And I think I can think of like tons of examples. It's really hard to like nail a specific one, but the one that comes up to me is only happened in the last couple of days, where we had a little bit of trolling going on the line, and it was just something that I wasn't prepared to like kind of take on board at this point in time. So Jazz just like kind of dealt with it and was like, look, what you're saying isn't correct. It's not what we're about. So I'm just going to leave this conversation here, and we're just going to like, move you out of our inbox, and you can kind of go live your life over here. So just kind of taking that pressure off myself, and her kind of just stepping up and saying like, no, that's not correct. What you're saying isn't relevant to Brad, so he doesn't need to see that. Like that's, I think just having each other's backs in those circumstances that, pop up online and even in person, it's just, it's really crucial. And she does such a great job of like lifting me up when I need it. So
Yeah. Awesome. And so what are your thoughts on work-life balance, unplugging, and what do you find works best for you to unwind and relax and disconnect?
Yeah, I've gone on the whole spectrum of this throughout our journey. Like we were working full-time jobs, both of us at the time, coming home, pumping out the eBay listings, getting the postage ready, then both going back to work. So we've done the hustle. And I think there is a time for that. There is a moment that makes sense, but I think over time you really have to understand like what you want out of life. And we've really kind of tried to condense our week into a Monday to Friday now for work. And then Saturday, Sunday is about the home life. Maybe we'll go away for the weekend. Maybe we'll just relax and take some time, watch that YouTube video that Kiddo put out.
Yes, sir.
But, I just think it's super important. And I think it's really important to live for the now and not live for the future, because tomorrow's never guaranteed. I know that's like super cliche, but
say it again, Brad. Say it again, in case they didn't hear it the first time.
it is true. Like you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I think that that's something that has really pushed me to like get back into training, and it's only been like a couple of weeks, but I've already felt a mind shift change. So
100%,
it's super important. What about yourself, man? Like you hustle hard. I know that you work real hard on your business. You've got the music. But I know that you live your life too, man. Like I know.
Well, I think so I was lucky because I read 4-Hour Workweek when I was like 16, 17, somewhere around that area, right? So my mind was very impressionable. I was absorbing information from everywhere. I was reading, I was watching YouTube. I was very lucky in that sense. And I think in 4-Hour Workweek, he speaks a lot about having these like mini holidays or mini vacations. And it goes back to that idea of not delaying what you want to do. And so the things that we want to do, that is also a habit that we need to build as well. We can build the habit of constantly delaying the things we want to do. But the problem is then we may never get around to it. And the other side of that coin as well is you need to taste what you think you want as well. Because you might find out that like the thing I wanted to do, I actually don't really want to do that to the extent that I want to do it at. For example, it's like certain countries, like some people have this idea that they're going to go visit a specific country. Then when they get there, it's not quite up to expectation. They then travel to a different country and they absolutely love it. Like I know for me, like Thailand was really surprising, so much so that I wanted to learn Thai. And like that was never on my radar. It was just from going there, seeing the culture, seeing the people, eating some of the food. I was like, man, this is fantastic. And that wasn't something that was like in my trajectory. And so I just think it's important when it comes to we need to have a strong work ethic, but we also need to understand the concept of a rest ethic. So this idea that as much as we want to go at 100 24/7, we need to be able to reset to 0. And so Josh Waitskin, I hope I'm saying that name correctly. Josh Waitskin has a book called The Art of Learning. And Josh is kind of, he started out being basically a chess prodigy. And then as he got older, he became like a black belt in martial arts. So like, imagine going like that transition's not easy to make, right?
Right.
But he speaks about like in terms of like most people are running at like 60 24/7. And as you know, with like any engine, if you just keep it going 24/7, eventually it's going to burn out and break down and need maintenance and whatever. So he speaks about the importance of resetting, being able to relax to that 0 so that then you can kick it up a notch, return to that 100. And like the version of you that's operating at 60 and 100 isn't like
different
2x. It's like leaps and bounds. So going back to rest and work ethic, I think there needs to be a balance there. In terms of so in terms of finding that work-life balance now, how are you finding it, I guess, this year so far?
I think this year is really what our future looks like. It's last year was a bit of a recovery mode. It was trying to rebuild a business that had some turbulence in it, and it was really like, the legs are going 100 miles under the water and you're just kind of staying afloat. Yeah. But I think this year, like with such simple like changes in my routine, especially over the last 2 weeks, and then also like trying to make sure that we're, the Monday to Fridays when we're in the warehouse, that's when we're doing the work. Yeah, we might go to a garage sale. Yeah, we might go to a thrift store.
Those are things you want to do.
Yeah, that's like the hobby side of what we do, right? So I think we've really just set ourselves up for a future. We've taken on staff that are helping us do that as well. So now we have a VA that works from the Philippines for us every day. She's amazing. And we have an in-house staff member working 25 hours a week as well, just to take some of that pressure off us, especially with Stockbox coming on board. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. So there's a lot of work, but we kind of keep it to a time frame and a routine. So
that's awesome. Rather than allowing it to take over like your entire mental space, you're able to segment it and structure it. And
don't get me wrong.
You seem more peaceful and calm than I've ever seen you, Brad. So keep doing what you're doing.
I think it's only been really the last like probably month that I've found that. So I think, like you were saying before, we went into Thailand last year. For those that don't know, I didn't talk about it a lot because I just wanted to go over there and see it for myself. And when I was over there, I wasn't the best version of myself. I was like full of anxiety. Like it was the first time I'd gone overseas and straight into a foreign country that didn't speak a lot of English. But you were there to help me, and you kind of helped me reset my brain to kind of like a state of, I guess, 0. And when I came back and kind of got better from a pretty not so good sickness, but for a couple of weeks, like
that post-travel flu,
bro, I was not good.
It can get you. It can get you.
But I think that experience kind of just pushed me in the right direction to understand that things needed to change, and I needed to start working on myself in mental and physical ways to make sure that I am a calmer version of myself, so that when those issues come up, it's less impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is a random piece of advice that somebody else gave you that turned out to be gold? Just random.
Yeah, that's tough. I think just not what it, again, it's going to sound like that everything I've ever learned is off Kiddo, but it's just something that sticks in my brain, right? It's just like, why do you care what other people think? Like, the way you kind of position it to me was like, you're putting out this information, you're helping people. If someone doesn't want that information and they can't understand why you're providing that information, then that's not your problem. So I think just being able to like take that like stress of like trying to do the right thing by every single person, which you can never possibly do, and just share our journey and our story. And if that can help people, then great. And if people can't be helped by that, then there's plenty of other people out there that are sharing their journey, and maybe you can learn something off them as well. So.
Correct. And I think it comes down to as well as like, we can only share the map to the places we've been, right? And if other people are not trying to go where we're going, it doesn't matter what map we give them. If they want to stay lost, they can. Or if they don't have to want to go where we're going. But in our case, when we're doing everything with the intention of helping other people, and somebody wants to come in and like try and detract from that, it's like, listen, they've got enough problems. Like, we can just safely just be like, we can have empathy for that person and be like, okay, listen, they've obviously got some stuff going on that has nothing to do with us. Like somebody might come on this video and be like, try and get at us on here. And I'm like, listen, that's on you, man. I'm here having an awesome conversation with my mate who I've known for years. Like, what's your problem, bro? Like, I'm having fun out here.
I think that it's a good mindset to have and really understand that it's tough. Like, I'm not going to say that I'm there because like things pop up and they still impact.
Neither for me either. Obviously, if somebody leaves a comment, I'm going to be like, oh, but like it's about processing that and keep moving forward and not letting that detract from the people who do need your help and who want your help and who want to hear from you. Because that's the main thing. That's who we're serving.
Yeah, you don't want to let the 1% take from the 99% good. Yeah.
Correct. And that's one thing about you that I think is also a strength is like you're always looking, even whether it's in business, whether it's with content, whether it's the information you're publishing, you're always looking at not what I can gain, but what I can offer first. And so when you're that archetype of person, it can be like, wow, I offered all this stuff and like there's some people that don't want it. Like it can get to, and so it's still important to understand that like, no, this is like basically what we've been put here to do is to help other people and to share our journey and to express ourselves. And the people that don't like it, like,
I think like I don't know everything, right? Like you said, I've only got the map to my journey, so I can't provide that map, and it's going to be the same for everyone else. Everyone's map is different, but I think it's like the key takeaways from that journey that you can kind of pick up the breadcrumbs and go, well, I don't have to sell what he sells, but I can use those processes to sell what I want to sell.
Correct. And it's also important for us to be able to remain open-minded, remain curious, learn from people no matter where they're from. And that's why like I'll read books from like just random businesses. Like it's about having that open mind and understanding like I can actually learn from everywhere and I can learn from anybody. And you move through life with that velocity, with that understanding, with that curiosity. And it's kind of like year on year, you're growing at a faster rate because most people just don't want to learn. Learning's not easy. Like it's a continual effort.
Challenge.
It's like our businesses. We got to keep working on it every single day because the rent is due every single day. But it's through that compounding that we, get obscene results and how one day we look up and we realize, wow, we've made 500 YouTube videos.
Yeah. Well, I don't
which is insane,
I don't know how you keep all that information in your brain because I feel like my brain is like full. And then if something comes in, something's got to go out. So you just seem to be able to keep cramming it in. So I look up for sure.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is kind of just like, there's connective tissue between ideas. So it's kind of like when you're learning about reselling, it's like, okay, if I learn today that certain vintage tags tell me that a shirt is older, I'll then connect that to the idea of, okay, now there's this other tag that I've learned about. Now there's this other tag. And in my brain, rather than it being like separate ideas, it's all connected on one framework.
Alongside of it. It's like when you said you were learning Thai and you're like, well, there's this similarity in Japanese and there's this similarity in English. So I can kind of like, connect the dots. And I was just looking at you like, what, man? Like,
yeah. Well, it's just like the connective tissue. Because the other thing is like, it's one of those things. I've been thinking about this recently. Is like, if you understand money and you understand melody, then you can travel most of the world. Because money is how you and I exchange goods. Like, I've got something you want, you got something I want, like we can trade. We understand trade with money. Now, if I understand melody, like there's a reason why certain pop songs, even though they're in English, will go to any country because the melody is so strong, the feeling in the melody is so strong. And so when you approach different languages, like they're just different melodies, they're just different patterns of speech. And so like you said, when I was explaining how like Japanese and Thai and English connect, is just like seeing those patterns and then being able to, interpolate them.
I just want to give a little bit of a backstory here. So we're in this place in Thailand in one of the markets, and we're sitting there talking to this lady, and lovely lady. She owned a tea shop, and she realized that Kiddo had Japanese background, so she started talking Japanese, Thai, and English to us, and so there was this interaction, sitting in this like random shed in the middle of this market, like 40 degrees, I'm just sitting there bewildered because I'd speak like the tiniest little bit of Japanese. I don't even speak it. I know a few words.
Yeah.
My English isn't great. I mean, I stumble over words all the time. And my Thai was like, I know how to say hello. How much is this? Where's the toilet?
Yeah.
And kiddo taught me to say, can I get a discount?
Yeah.
So I was just mind blown by that situation that you're able to kind of like jump in and out of these three languages in like the moment, like seconds.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. And I think my mum, like, I can't claim credit for that. I think my mum being an example of, like, my mum's a white Australian who is bilingual, so she can speak Japanese. And so just seeing that as like a potential, like, massive influence, obviously, but as in like a potential route you can go, like going back to the map terrain metaphor, it's like she has a different map to like lots and lots of people. And so I look at her map and how she learned Japanese and like as an exchange student, and I'm like, well, if she could do it, of course I could do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having that example, and then that's how I hope to be for other people as well. Whether it's through these conversations, whether it's through YouTube, whether it's through music, is like, if somebody can look at what I'm doing and be like, oh, okay, kiddo is like literally sweating in his shed in the middle of the day, no aircon. He's just got a mic and some headphones talking to Brad. Like, of course I could start like doing YouTube videos. You know what I mean? Or whether they see the music. So it's like one of those things. It's like we need to just continue on our journeys and, you know, do what's true to us, I think. Yes. Speaking on like big influences, is there anybody specifically who you think, besides Jazz, has been a massive influence on you, your business, maybe just the way that you approach things? Who's been the biggest influence for you?
I mean, outside of my family, obviously, and the situations that I was in as a child, and I'm not saying we're in a bad situation. I'm sort of saying that like my parents did the best with what they had, and they made it not difficult for us. Like, we didn't really know that we're in that situation at the time, right? But now looking back on it, you're like, oh man, yeah, that was tough. I think for me, it's the two biggest ones that kind of got me into my reselling journey was Cody Orgill.
Shout out to Cody. I'm going to send this to Cody, the G, the man, the myth, the legend.
He is the OG of Australian reselling. Yes. And also, when I'm talking reselling, I'm probably talking like Rally Roots, because it was a couple over in America. I was able to kind of like see parts of ourselves in their journey and then kind of replicate that into an Australian version of, you know, what we're able to pick up, what we're able to find. And then I think in terms of like business, I think that's really tough. Like, I don't really have like a lot of people that I'm super close with that have that business mindset. So I think having someone like yourself, and a few other people that I talk to on the regular, just about like the actual nitty gritty of business,
the day to day.
And kind of understanding how to leverage what you've got to get to that next level. I think you guys have been great as like kind of bounce off people to have those discussions. And I think we've all learned bits and pieces from each other over that. So,
100%.
Yeah. And I look up to, you know, obviously all the big guys that have done really well in certain ways, but it's not the path that I'm on. So it's kind of like you're
doing your own thing. You're following your, absolutely. So I guess in your opinion, why do people never start the business or never start the YouTube channel?
I think it's partially programmed into us. Like, I think, like I was saying earlier, you go to school, there's not really any kind of like business acumen. There's no kind of like, this is how you would start your own business. It's like, get your grades, go to uni, or get a trade. Like, that's kind of the options, right? So I think it's kind of part the way we're kind of trained to be. And I think it's also part nurture. Like, I think my parents have been super like supportive of our journey. Like, it'd be very easy for them to say when we first started, like, what are you doing? Like, you're giving away a job where you're paid like a decent amount of money to go sell other people's crap. Like, what?
Yeah.
But they were always like, you know, you do what you want to do. Like, you're making money, you're doing the right thing, you're helping people. So go, like, learn. If it fails, it fails, but you're going to learn along the way. So yeah, I think without having those kind of influences, it's very hard to kind of push outside that frame. So I think a lot of people get stuck in like, what if I do that? Am I going to have a proper income? And that's a valid concern. So you need to like work up to getting to that
Yeah.
pay bracket you want to be. So yeah, I just think it's kind of a bit of waiting until the perfect moment, and there's never a perfect moment. And then I think it's also a bit of like programming through school and just society in general. Like, yeah, there's no schooling that says this is how you open a business, this is how you do your taxes, this is how you do your GST. I can think of one example, and in my schooling days, this was like year 7 or 8, man. Like, we made this
Year
company.
7 or 8.
Yeah, bro.
Enough said.
We had one teacher who pushed outside the sort of norm, and they went through this, like, we had to start this pencil case company, like a company that personalized pencil cases for school students, right?
Okay,
And
so like a thought experiment, almost like an exercise.
Well, no, we had to actually do it.
Oh,
like,
okay, so that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this is the one time at school that I ever got taught about any type of business, and it was because this one teacher went outside the normal curriculum. And I wish there was more of that, because that one thing is stuck in my mind, where it was like, all right, we have to go out and get capital for this company, so we have to sell shares. I mean, we were asking our parents for like $10, and they're not exactly going to say no to a 12-year-old after $10, right? But the moral of the story is that one little experience within school, I wish could be replicated as like a normal part of the curriculum, so people could understand that it's not always about you have to work for somebody else or you have to go down that path. You can create your own path. It's not going to be easy, but there is a path open.
You can say that again. It's not going to be easy.
It's not. I mean, when you work for yourself, right? Like I say, we keep them Monday to Friday, but you're always thinking, you're always like trying to work out what's next, how you're going to continue to, pay the bills, pay the rent. All those sorts of things are always in your mind. So it's not like you clock in, you clock out, but it's a different type of mindset as well, because you can stop and start at any time during the day and go have lunch or go to Thailand with a friend if if you're so inclined. So yeah, it opens a lot of doors.
Yeah. And so can you speak on how much better is your lifestyle now than compared to when you were at your corporate job, kind of those last 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, I think back to those kind of last 2 years of working corporate job, and it was tough, man. Like, there was nothing like intrinsically bad about the place I worked, right? Like, it was a job. Like, you showed up in the morning, you left at night, you had really great people there. And that's probably the one thing that I do miss as a entrepreneur, is you're often in your own lane. But mentally, I was just like flat. I couldn't do it. I just wasn't interested. I just had no drive to like be there. It was just kind of like, you're a number. It doesn't matter if you come or go tomorrow. It's just, you're there. So now, coming out the back end of some really turbulent time, I feel like we have that flexibility to do things. So like I was saying the other day, it was 41 degrees in the warehouse. So we made sure we were there at 7 and we left by 9 a.m. because we're like, we're not going to be in the warehouse when it's 41 degrees. We could bring stuff home, do some work here, jump online, create a video or something else that's going to keep our business moving. If you're 100%. In a job, you don't really have that option.
Like, you're not finishing it at 9 a.m. You're starting at 9 a.m.
Right. There's no way that's happening, right? And it does give us freedom to make those decisions when we have family here. Like, we can finish up early and come home, have like dinner or go see a movie or something else that we wouldn't be able to do for a 9 to 5. So yeah, I'm super grateful that we took the leap that we did and the freedom it gives you, but it also has its struggles behind it as well. I don't want to overinflate.
You don't want to sugarcoat it. Like, it's not dreamland all of a sudden. Like, you still got to put in work. You're still working. It's not, you
hustle.
So what is your advice to somebody that wants to start the business or wants to start posting on YouTube, wants to start doing the thing they really want to do, but hasn't yet? But they know part of them is like, I need to do this thing. What's your advice to that person?
Just Nike, just do it. Like, if you look back at our first video, and please don't, because it is, it's
well, now you have to go and watch Brad's first video, and you'll be inspired because the progression is crazy.
Right, I didn't even film it in the right orientation. I didn't understand anything about pace of a video. I didn't understand about how you need to talk to camera. I didn't understand about like cutting out crap that's not relevant to the video. It's just like, oh, I filmed all this footage, so all this footage has to go in this video. Whereas the video that I just put up about going thrifting, I've had like an hour and a half of footage and it ended up being a 10-minute video because the other hour and 20 minutes is dead. Like it's not relevant.
Yes.
So I think,
but if I can say something there, those first few videos were the reason you and I connected to begin with, because I saw you putting yourself out there, and at that point you're getting a couple hundred views. Like there's nobody like being like, yeah, let's subscribe, like you were just documenting the journey. And so there's so much value in here. This is me. I'm putting myself out there. This is what I'm working on. You might be interested in, and this is what I'm thinking as I'm doing this. And you do that year on year on year, and people can follow your journey. And then, you and I end up here where we're talking about it all, reflecting on it. And also you can go back to that video and you might think, like it's even the same with some of my early songs, right? We might think, looking back on our early work, our early releases, and be like, oh, that's cringe. Like there's so many things I could have done better. But also it's a massive inspiration to the people that are just getting started, because we're giving them permission to start.
I did this exercise with one of the travel channels that I really look up to. And like when we were talking about traveling Australia, I really wanted to elevate the content that we're going to be bringing to that channel. So I was like, how do I get to that level where, what I'm saying to the camera is engaging people and bringing people into the journey rather than just telling people about a journey. And I look back at their channel and I went all the way back to the start, and I went to their very first video and I was like, man, like these guys, like their progression from how this started to where they are now is like on a different planet. Like they were the people that were just like walking around filming random bits of footage that had there's no story to it. And now this channel has like 4 million subscribers, right? So if they can do that, anyone with a phone can do that. You just have to learn and progress and get better. And saying that, like, we're not at the peak of YouTube. There's so many people that know much more than us and are a lot better at talking to cameras. But I feel like over time, we're just slowly getting incrementally better. And maybe one day, maybe 10 years, 20 years down the track, the content will be dialed. But it's all about the journey. And I'd encourage anyone to give it a crack. And just enjoy it. And I think, you do have to have a bit of thick skin because people are going to come in and try and shake your reality. But at the end of the day, I think that also can make you stronger.
Let's go. All right. So what I wanted to move on to next is operating the business. Let's dive into kind of the nitty gritty, the specifics, the day-to-day. What is broadly, first off, what is the easiest part about running your business?
The fact that I love it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not something that I have to battle to do. I love the fact that I can find something somewhere and understand that there's intrinsic value to that, and then find the right person that's going to want that item. I feel like a lot of thrifters get the endorphin of like the find and the sale, but I really feel like you have to understand that the process is what you really need to love, because if you don't love that, then you're not going to have a business. And I think that's the toughest thing. And I think that's why we've kind of brought people on board to help us with those parts of the business that are outside of like the most valuable parts. So the most valuable part of you being in a business is your knowledge, right? You understand a product, you understand what the value of that is. So your most economical time in the business is either sourcing or describing an item, because you'd have that knowledge. So there might be parts of your business that you don't necessarily excel at, you're good at, that someone else can come in and take over and take your business to that next level. So for me, having been able to bring those people in has really helped me enjoy all of the business, because I'm doing the things that are progressing us the most.
Yes, absolutely. And so what does your typical workday look like? Can you run me through like your average Monday?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty lucky in that we don't get up super early. Like we're getting to the warehouse at 9 o'clock, and we've done that specifically to try and miss traffic. Because the warehouse is 30 minutes away, 45 if there's traffic. So we get there at 9. Luckily, if we didn't have our staff member, it'd be a matter of picking all the orders, going through the process of the computer, making sure all those orders are in line, printing all the labels, getting those labels out. And then it's a matter of, we kind of split tasks. So Jazz does all the photos for us now. I do all the finance. I get all the deals ready to go. I kind of sort things. Now I'm pretty much managing Stockbox full time as well. So actually sorting each and every item into those boxes. And then it's a matter of getting those photos to our VA from Jazz. So she ships them off into a file. They fly overseas, and then magically within a couple of hours, we've got drafts ready to go. We go back into those items. We make sure that we're happy with the listing. We price everything ourselves because we don't want to put that on someone else. We don't want to, them to accidentally sell a $150 item for $30 because they don't have the intricacies of it. So it's really about us identifying what tasks are most valuable. And I think our next evolution, Jazz is fantastic at photos. She destroys me tenfold, but we would like to bring someone in to take that off her plate a little bit so that she can, like me, work on the most important parts of growing our business. Obviously, photos is a huge part of our business, but we could train someone else to do that as well. So there's a lot going on. We get home after that about between sort of 3 and 4, depending on the day. And then it's, do the listings once we get home, either film a video, create a video, edit a video, talk to the Discord group that we're running for a membership. So there's always some sort of like end of day ritual that we're doing to kind of round it out. But each day is always slightly different.
Slightly different, but that's like broad strokes, your typical workday.
Yeah.
Can I ask with the photos, is Jazz putting those in a Dropbox, a Google Drive? Like, how is that?
Yeah. So we have a Dropbox set up. You can use either Dropbox or Google Drive, whatever works. But yeah, we just drop it in there. We send that file to our VA. VA picks it up. VA picks it up. And luckily we got lucky first time, and she's probably better at keywords than I am. So that's
Can you do you mind speaking on like how to find a good VA? Is it the same as finding a good employee? Like, do you need to just like trial different people? Like, what's that process look like?
I think the best way to do it would be to obviously go to one of the websites like Upwork or Fiverr. We currently use Upwork because there is so much information on Upwork. You can kind of look at their previous history. You can look at what other tasks they've done for other people. You can look at feedback on what they've done. So I really pulled through 200 different people and really looked at someone that had done pre-owned clothing before, someone that had good reviews on that clothing. I could see listings that they'd done before because they provided that information. So I could kind of tell by the structure of title that they were going to be able to pick up what we were doing and replicate it. And then it was just a matter of sending out a few messages. Maybe you want to do a trial period with 2 or 3 of them potentially and just see how quick they are as well, because that's another factor to it. Maybe someone's really good at keywords, but they're only able to do 2 or 3 an hour, and you want to find that person that's kind of doing 10 or 12 an hour. So yeah, it's trial and error, but I think you can kind of eliminate a lot of the error by doing your research properly. So really scrolling through, not just picking the first person that pops up that's the cheapest, looking at what they're actually capable of doing, talking to them via messages, which is very easy on Upwork. And yeah, I honestly think that hiring that VA has probably, if not one of the best decisions we've ever made, the best decision we've ever made.
Yeah. So just a pivot to another part of the business. Do you have any tips for sourcing and building supplier relationships? Because I noticed this theme with you over the years is that you're really good at creating those win-win situations. So can you provide, some tips on sourcing and building those supplier relationships?
I think the only way that you're ever going to be successful is to create a win-win situation. There's no... The short-term mindset is I'm going to get one up on you, right? It's very I'm going to get this deal. I'm going to make lots of money off of you. And then that person never comes back to you because they've lost out. You've taken advantage of that person, and that person's no longer going to want to deal with you. They'll find someone else that's better. So when I walk into a situation, I'm always thinking about what is their position in this relationship? What are they getting out of it? What do they need? What is the thing that's stopping them from getting where they want to be? So, looking at if they're an op shop, for example, what is the struggle in their op shop? Do they have a lot of stock that they can't get through, or they don't know how to process properly? How can you help with that? Is there an option for you to go in the back room and help them sort in a way that's beneficial for them without just you gathering all the good stuff and running off with it? Like
cherry picking and
yeah, like if you're helping them, they're going to help you. Whether it's looking at other opportunities outside of op shops and looking at your area and going, all right, there's recyclers in my area. They're probably ditching this, and this because it's not valuable to them. If I come in and say, hey, I can pay X amount per item or X amount per kilo, that's getting them more money than they had before for not much work. So finding a way of putting yourself in their shoes and understanding what their pain points are, and then reverse engineering that into how you can help them is realistically the only way we've ever been able to get deals that we probably shouldn't get. Like, do you know what I mean? Realistically, me and Jazz, as two business owners, have walked into some situations where I'm like, these people don't have to deal with us. Like, there's no right for us to walk in and just go, hey, like, we want to work with you. So it's really about how you approach that situation and how you show them that you want them to succeed as well.
So maybe I'm just starting out and I don't have any suppliers, but like I know I've got a little bit of money each week to kind of sustain a supplier relationship. How do you suggest I find my first supplier? Is it going to the flea market? Is it going to the same op shop over and over again? Is it going on Google and looking up local recyclers, like how would you suggest I find my first supplier if I've never had one before?
Yeah, I think there's arguments for all of those, right? I think markets
Yes.
have great potential in them in that, there's going to be probably regular people that go there. There's going to be the mum and dad cleaning out the basement kind of people that go there. And there's potentially going to be business people there as well. So you kind of got the full spectrum of people. So if I was kind of looking at a market, I'd be looking at people that, have a lot of stuff and trying to understand why they have the stuff. Ask the questions like, do you clean out storage units? Or, is this like a once-off thing for you? And trying to understand like what the situation is, because the once-off deal isn't going to sustain your business. Yes. So you really want to be able to find a repeatable solution, whether that's at a market or, going into an op shop, like you said, regularly and building a relationship. You're going to know which people want to help you. They're the people that talk to you and say hello to you when you walk in the door. They ask you questions about what you're doing. And I don't think there's any advantage in being shady about being a reseller, because the amount of times
Just be straight up. Be straight up. It's the easiest thing to do. And then they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then
and 9 times out of 10, that might lead to a further conversation. And maybe the 10th one's like, oh, but that doesn't matter because that wasn't the person that was going to help you in the first place.
Yeah.
The 9 times out of 10 where you can continue that conversation and be like, oh yeah, like, is there any way I can help you with anything that you're struggling to move? Yes. Or is there any way that I can get more money into your business? Like, do you have a budget that you need to hit every week? Like, what are their stresses? So I think if you choose any one of those situations, if you go into it with that mindset of like, I'm going to show up for this person, I'm going to make sure that I'm here at the time I say I'm going to be here, which is a huge thing. I'm going to make sure that...
Can you just repeat that again for the people?
Showing up when you say you're going to show up.
100%.
Because
100%.
It's so easy to just be like, I'm only 10 minutes late, but you're not valuing that person's time. You're not giving that person the respect they deserve. Mm-hmm. You're not giving that person... You're not putting your best foot forward to get further in that conversation. Yes. So show up when you say you're going to show up. The first few deals might not go your way. You might need to overpay for a few things so that you can continue that. But just know that if you do the right thing by them, long-term, they will do the right thing by you.
100% agree. I think my best supplier relationships have begun because I wasn't trying to fight over a couple of dollars up front, because I understood that the relationship was worth 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. And those are the relationships that you want. And so, like I've said this before in like a short form, but I'll say it again, which is this idea that if we can go into looking not just for stuff, but look for relationships, the stuff will come as a byproduct. You
Yeah,
want to find people that you want to work with and that want to work with you. Once you find that, you're off to the races because you have that trust, and that speed of trust is you can't compete with that because, you know, week to week, business is not going to be the same. You might have to say, hey, like, this is what I need this week. This is what I need. You know what I mean? So yeah, 100%.
I think there's an important point there as well is if you're just going in for the one and done, you've lost a set of eyes. So the more people you build relationships for, it's not just you going to an op shop or a market looking for items. That person that you build a relationship and they know what you're buying, they're looking for you as well. So it's like exponential. It's like building that family tree, 100%. If you want to call it that. It's like spreading out those sourcing avenues over 10, 15, 20, 30 people rather than one.
100%. And the thing is, the reason why that's difficult to do is because you need to be thinking about your business longer than the next month. Correct. You need to be thinking about your business in terms of the next year, in terms of the next 5 years. And I think that's what it comes down to. A lot of people are not building for the long term, are not thinking beyond step 1, 2, like, and that I think has been one of your strengths and something that I've learned off you is, one, we're building these relationships, but at the same time, we're also thinking about, okay, if I do this, then what happens as a result of that? Okay, when that happens, I pivot and do this. And so I think that's very important in business. What is your, like, how do you know what to buy? What's your product research process? Like, what is your criteria that gives you the green light to say, yep, I'm going to buy this and then I'm going to sell it? Can you walk through the specifics, whether it's comping, whether it's...
Yeah, I think now it's kind of almost natural, but that's a learned process, right? So when we first came in, it was trial and error, like, but you have all the resources you need on eBay now. Like, you have Terapeak, which is a great resource to look at sales history on an item. You can look at sold items on eBay and compare them to how many items are listed. So if you got this cup and there's one sold and 3,000 listed, there's no point buying this cup because the chances of you being that one person that's going to sell this cup is minuscule.
Very low.
But if you've got one cup listed and 50 sold, buy the cup, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying go out and buy cups because that's a
yeah. Don't get the idea. Don't copy exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
This is not financial advice. This is educational, informational, entertainment. All right.
Yeah. So I guess it's really starting to understand what things are indications of value in a product, whether that's in clothing, like the material, the age, the brand, the style, the cut, like whatever that particular thing is that gives that item value is what you will learn over time. And that's probably what you want to focus on it in the beginning is understanding. Say you do a search on eBay for men's jeans and you see that Levi's are selling pretty regularly, but then you dive deeper and you see, oh, okay, 501s, 511s, 514s, 504s are the top 4 brands, top 4 styles within Levi's that sell most regularly. So you've not only just looked at Levi's, you've looked at why, like what part of Levi's are the things that you want to be looking at. You want to understand, like, does butterfly sell better than zip? Because that's another component that potentially adds value to it. So there's always like little intricacies that is going to take you time, but all the resources are there, whether you watch YouTube and you take what people say and go do your own research, because like Kiddo said, people can provide a map, but that doesn't mean the map's going to suit your treasure hunt.
Yes,
so
100%.
Watch people, learn from people, and then do your own research, because I think that's the part that people miss. And then they go back and go, oh, well, I picked up a pair of Levi's and they never sold. Well, were they?
And then it's your fault, apparently. Yeah. Or they blame somebody on YouTube. It's like, no. You just copied what somebody else told you to do, and you didn't do your own homework. I think that's what I want people to get from this conversation as well. It's like, you and I can speak from our experiences only. What works for me is going to work differently for Brad. What works for Brad is going to work differently for me. But then the best thing that we can do is share what has worked for us, because then maybe it does work for somebody else.
And we have vastly different but similar business models in that
100%.
You know, I sell a whole range of things. You sell mostly clothing, but the processes and analysis and all the steps to get us to that end goal are the same. It's just a different product.
We both had to list items. Yeah. A lot of them.
We were both in our shed at some point.
100%. So I guess, all right. So you mentioned comps. Can you walk me through what is a comp first and foremost, and how does somebody do a comp?
So the easiest way is to just go on eBay, type in whatever item you have in front of you. And a really good way of doing this is going around your house, finding items that you think may be valuable and you're not really having any like attachment to them. Maybe you want to sell them on eBay. So maybe you grab this little Mario Bros NES game. You type in Mario Bros Nintendo Entertainment NES game boxed. And then you want to look at the comps based on which is the items that are listed. So what is listed on eBay, and then go to the search filter and look at what's sold. And then
And that's
really,
in the left-hand navigation. You want to scroll down to the left and tick sold. So we're comparing what's available and then comparing it to what is sold.
Yeah, because the biggest mistake people make as new resellers is just looking at what is currently listed. So you could have, 100 of those listed at $300, right? And they go, oh, cool, mine's worth $300. But if you actually
how many have sold?
Correct. If you look at sold and you realize that, oh, okay, they're actually selling at $200, the market's actually overpricing because maybe those people don't really want to sell that item. Maybe they're just happy to sit on it. If you want to sell an item, you've got to meet market. So what is the market? And then understand that market. You want to be using your filters, like what condition is it in? Is it brand new? Is it pre-owned, depending on what category you're looking at? And find, if you're doing clothing, find similar items. You're maybe not going to be able to find the exact same thing, but you can kind of match up like a Levi's 501 with a Levi's 501. You can kind of match up like, a dress in a certain brand with a similar print in the same brand. Like you may not be able to find the exact one, but you're going to find something with the same indicators. Maybe it's the same material. Maybe it's the same cut. Maybe it's the same, length. So like there's all these things that can add to the information that you can gather.
Yes. And so how much attention am I paying to the price, and how do I roughly gauge the price I should sell something for?
I think you want to understand where you are in the market, I think. So the way I look at it is when I'm buying something, that's when I'm making my money, right? So if I can see that, again, we're going to go back to the cup analogy.
Yeah, no, it's good. And because it's a Coca-Cola cup. So this is actually perfect.
Yeah. This item, for example, let's say that on the high end of the market, it's a $30 item. It is probably not, but regardless.
Just for this example. Yeah.
And one has sold at $30 in the last 90 days. But there's a whole bunch of them that are sold at $22. And then there's a couple that are sold at $15 and they've gone quicker. How quickly do you want to move your item? Like, have you paid $1 for this and you're happy to take $22 and it's going to sell in a week? If that was me, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or did you overpay and pay $20 for this item and you can't afford to sell it for anything under 30? Like, it's really about understanding what item you've got, how many you're selling, what your buying cost is if you're spending money on buying your stock. And I think that's the most important thing is you have to understand when you're buying what you're going to sell it for. And I'd probably go for the middle of the range, especially when you're starting out. Maybe even you want to go like somewhere towards the bottom of the range because your skills aren't going to be honed as well as that person that's selling it for the top value. Maybe they've got a lot of history on selling on eBay. Maybe they know the one guy in the world that wants the Coke thing for $30 and he's a regular customer. Like, yeah, you can't be aiming for the top end of the market when you're just starting. You need to be, getting stuff in and out the door, getting that money back in your pocket. Because if you put it for 30, it's going to sit there for probably longer than 90 days and you're never going to be able to buy anything again because you've spent it all in your cup.
100%. 100%. Awesome. So I guess we've done the research process. What is your current processing workflow from sourcing all the way to shipping? Like we went through your workday, but can you take me through the journey? Like maybe just like a short version. What is the journey of an item? You've grabbed it from the up shop, you've bought it. What are you doing next? What's your processing all the way to shipping it?
Yeah. So generally we'll have in the car boxes. So stuff goes straight in those boxes, just makes it easy, or IKEA bags. Just so you're not stuffed.
And you leave those boxes in there all the time?
Until I've finished that day. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's always IKEA bags in there because we post and pick stuff up. And sometimes there's boxes if we know we're going to a bigger deal. But
Yes.
have some sort of collection area.
So you're not just chucking it in the back of your car.
Correct, because it's going to fall down the seat. It might get dirt on it, like you're wasting your time. So we put it in one of those collection devices, let's call it that. Then it will go into our, I guess, awaiting listing pile or awaiting photograph piles. And we'll do a check before it gets to photos just to make sure we haven't missed any flaws or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of more of a like, as you're going, you might want to stack up all your t-shirts together, all your jeans together, all your, you're trying to like get like items together, batching like you said in your video. Okay. And then it will be a matter of it goes through to Jasmine. She takes photos of it. The cost of the item is recorded on our SKU on eBay. So whether that's by Jazz taking a photo of it, including in our photo set and then deleting it at the back end, or we have that information because it's a bulk deal and we know how much each item cost. Then the item will obviously go to our VA, like I said. The draft...
Are you putting the item away after photos?
Yeah, so the item goes into a SKU box, which is a box with a location identifier on it. So we have a system that works on rack number, shelf number, and then box number. And then a further step to that is item number. So depending how far you want to go down that journey.
Yes. So the SKU stock keeping unit, that's basically just telling you where the item is in your warehouse.
It's telling you where to look for it, or my staff member to look for it, more importantly.
Yeah.
So we actually send that information to our VA. So when we've got the box, we'll take a photo of that. And even now we've gone a step further with the pre-owned clothing changes in how you need to describe the condition. So we've created color coding for good, very good, and or fair.
Smart. And are you using like a sticker or?
So just a little square. One's green, one's orange, and one's blue. And they just have
you're reusing those squares? Yeah.
Yep. It's just the same photo as when we do the SKU. So Jazz will have the box next to her, which has the SKU number on the box. She'll hold up the item that's in a bag with a number, and then there'll be the color code that matches whether it's fair, good, or excellent. So the VA knows all that information straight up. They can put all that information into our listing without asking us any questions. One photo, all the information's there.
Beautiful.
Then from there, those items go to our VA. Like I said, VA does the drafts. The stock gets put on the shelf. The items get listed in the evening or the next day, depending on how much of a bank we've got. And then hopefully they sell.
Yes. And so the VA is saving those to drafts and then you're reviewing them before you send them live.
Yeah. So you can provide your VA with whatever level of access you would like to do. There's a lot of back-end adjustability on that. So we've got her the ability to draft items. Essentially, that's all she can do on our store is draft items. She can use the research as well. So she can use Terapeak if she'd like to. But yeah, the way that eBay's got it set up now is like very clear about what responsibilities and actions they can take on your account.
Awesome. So how do you stay disciplined on the days that you don't feel like working?
I think right now, everything that I'm doing is what I want to be doing, right? So I think back to the days of having to smash out 60 listings or 60 drafts every day by myself. And then, Jazz would do the other part of the photos. And that was the grind, right? And I know there's people doing way more than that, way less than that. Like the numbers are relevant. Yeah. But doing that task was
anything beyond 10 and continuously doing it is not easy. Let's say that. You've got to work up to it.
You've got to, it's something that we scaled. So when we were doing this part-time after our full-time job, we were trying to hit 2 a day, right? Basic, do 2 a day, you're good to go. And then it moved up to 10, and then it moved up to 20, then it moved up to 30, then 50, then 60. Now we've kind of wound that back a little bit because we're aiming for a higher ASP and we want that work-life balance kind of thing.
And what's ASP, Brad?
I'm just throwing out all these terms. Average sale price. So there's 2 ways of running an eBay business. Well, there's multiple.
Yeah.
There's a million
There's heaps of ways, but like in terms of reseller land, there's like a couple of ways. There's a handful of ways.
There's the McDonald's analogy, if you want to call it that, the high volume, lower ASP, average sale price, or there's kind of the route that we've taken, which is higher average sale price. So we need to list more. Then that obviously means we have to list less, ship
And
less
ship
to get
less.
the same money.
Yes.
So there's kind of two routes you can take on that as well.
Yes. And so what would you say is one mistake you made in your early days, and how did you fix it or adapt? In your early days, I'm talking like year 1, year 2.
I think just buying stuff for the sake of buying stuff, right? Like it's very easy, especially when you're in that dopamine hit of like op shopping, for example.
Yeah.
There's stuff everywhere and you're just like, oh, that could be cool. Like that looks cool. But
That's not the way to do a run a business.
Looking cool doesn't mean value. Like something can look cool and be worth nothing.
Yeah.
So you really need to be disciplined and understand that what you're buying, you have to have confidence in it selling. So yes, you're going to make some mistakes at the start. That's natural. But if you can avoid 90% of those by just taking that extra step of taking an extra minute to comp that item on the 30 seconds on eBay and really understanding the data, that's going to put you ahead of 99% of resellers who start reselling on eBay. Because I didn't do that when I started. Most people I talked to didn't do that when they started because they were just like, oh, I'm in this op shop. I need to get as much as I can. They're worried that the staff members are going to see them looking at their phone. Like, staff members don't care. A, and B, everyone's on their phone. You going on an app to look up the price for something is not going to trigger them to be like, get out of my store.
Yeah.
And if they are, you don't want to be working with them anyway. So
Yes.
you've just ticked them off your list. You don't need to worry about them in the future.
100%. 100%.
What would you say? I want to throw that one back on you because I feel like there's a lot there and there's a lot of things that you can make mistakes as a new reseller, and your experience is different to mine.
I think so. I've had different evolutions of my storage system.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the early mistake, and I've got a clip of this on my Instagram.
I remember
was my storage system to begin with was the old pile in the corner of the room storage system.
I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with you early days, and I was like, "Bro, you need to get
tubs. You need tubs. You need a shelf." Yeah, but like at the start, I was like, I guess I wasn't.
You don't worry about it.
Well, I wasn't comprehending the extent of the one. I didn't understand stock size. So at the start, here's a really clear example and something I never repeated. I bought a bulk lot of Nerf guns because on YouTube,
I remember.
On YouTube, people were saying buy Nerf guns, and I was like, "Oh, let me try this." Other people say Nerf guns sell well. Let me give it a whirl. All right, let me just start off by saying the bulk lot that I bought was actually in good condition. There was a lot, right? The only problem with Nerf guns is they are massive, and trying to ship those within Australia, I did not enjoy whatsoever.
No.
I did end up selling those Nerf guns, but not before they lived in my room. They were in the garage. They were in 3 separate IKEA bags or something like that, right? So I was just carting them around, right?
I remember a picture of them being on your bed at one point.
Yes. Well, I've got a clip of them literally on my desk in my room. And at the point I was sleeping downstairs on the floor. So I was literally choosing Nerf guns in my room over sleeping in my room. Silly, stupid, right? I did end up selling those Nerf guns. I think I got a couple $100 and I sent them in a massive box. So I did work it out. But the mistake I made first was not understanding how storage works on big items. That's a big thing. The other thing is understanding sell-through. So I thought I was just going to buy them and I was just going to keep them and it was all going to be fine. But the problem is over time that gets more and more and more inconvenient. You have massive stuff just sitting there that's not selling. Like and the worst part was too, Brad, is I didn't list it for a while either. So it just sat there. No one could see it. No one could buy it. It was just sitting there.
In your head, you're like, yeah, that's value, but no one can see the value because you haven't put it anywhere.
Because I haven't put it anywhere. So not only that, it was hard to photograph as well. So I guess I say all that to say the mistake I made was not understanding storage systems first. I say at the beginning, like, even if you don't plan on building a massive store, like you don't have to scale like Brad or I have, right? But just anticipating, like just be organized from the start Doesn't matter whether it is a pile in the corner of your room, but maybe it's like a couple of storage tubs that
Yeah.
like are
Just
clearly
write
labeled.
A and B
Yeah,
on it. Easy.
yeah, just A and B, just separate, just so you're not doing what I did, which was digging through a corner of my room looking for like I had boxes of books, and like to find one box, one book, I had to like take the boxes down and then like go to the bottom, because it's always the one that sells in the bottom box. It's never
I,
the one that from the top box. All right,
I,
guys, let me just say that here.
I just want to point out quickly as well, like this is where the custom SKU comes in really handy.
Yes.
So the custom SKU field on eBay, it's a field that only you can see. Your buyer cannot see this.
Yes.
So that's where you're going to put the location of that item. And like Kiddo's saying, doesn't matter if you think you're only going to have 10 things, if you get it right at the start. I think we got to about 12 boxes before deciding to put SKUs on. And at that point, I was like, I can't remember which box it's in. And then you'd have to go check 3 boxes to find the one item that sold for $20. You just wasted an hour of your time to find a
looking
$20
for the item.
Right?
When you could have just written like a little thing. Like, and the thing is like a lot of people on YouTube will use, or a lot of eBay sellers will use SKUs that seem complex. So let's say like 100XV something something. At the start, you don't need to do that. You could literally just write in the SKU. You could say in the bedroom. Or you could say in the black box.
Where it is, right?
In the plastic tub. You're just basically in that SKU field, SKU, stock keeping unit. You don't even need to know that. All you're putting there is, I mean, you can put whatever you want in there, but like you could put how much you paid for the item. That's good too, which is what you've done. But yeah, just you could put the location of where the thing is, where the item is, because that's going to help you, and you're not going to be like me and be like with my Nerf guns. And
it's just one more thing that you can delete from your brain as well, right? Like if you're trying to remember every single item that you put in a box somewhere in your house, it's like it takes up so much brain power, which you could be focusing on buying better items. Like it's just, there's so much noise when it comes to reselling. You really need to reduce it and understand. You get your processes right from the start, you're going to be better off.
Yes. And that's not to say that you have to be perfect from the start, but it's just something worth being like thinking of from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Have something.
Think about, have something, just a little something. All right. So Brad, what is one part of your business that you are least proud of?
That's really tough. I think,
or maybe it was something in the beginning that you've worked on over time and
I think like looking at our business right now, it's really that we haven't been able to get on top of the stock that we don't want to be having in our store. So the legacy of bad buys, whether that's ourselves or other people that have been in and out of the business along the way, like that's irrelevant, right? The stock's still there. So it's about having a system in place and working to a better system of making sure that whatever that dead weight is in our store is removed. And we are working towards that with auctions and stuff. But that's probably one part of the business that I know we can do better at, and I know we could be making more money in that space. So that is something that I'm like not proud of. I'm proud that we built a stock level to what we have, but I'm not proud of the legacy of some of that stock.
Yes. And then the flip side, what is the part of your business you are most proud of?
I think for me, without going deep into it, is that myself and Jazz were able to survive 12 months of absolute like paddling, keeping the head above water. And in a time that I thought we may not be able to. Because we have high overheads, those things all compound in a business. And with what occurred, it was quite likely that we weren't going to be able to sustain what we were doing. So for us to be able to build new networks, new relationships, and new sources to allow us to actually do that and still pay for an expensive warehouse and everything that goes along with that, I'm super proud of.
And still be publishing YouTube videos the whole time.
Yeah, I think we missed probably 3 or 4 weeks in the last year, and those 3 and 4 weeks, like we really needed to not publish. But because I think it's one thing to share like the ups and downs of a journey, but there's a point in time where it's not beneficial for you or anybody else.
100%. You've just got to deal with it and keep it pushing, keep moving forward.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I guess we're on to section 3 now. So I wanted to talk about the eBay market and industry trends. Over the past 5 years, how have you seen the eBay market change, and where do you see it headed?
I'm trying to think like what 5 years ago it was, but I think the biggest change in the market is understanding that it's more of a pay to play system now with promoted listings. They're bringing in promoted stores. They're talking about pay-per-click campaigns and all this sort of stuff. So it's an added cost to the bottom line. Like unless you're selling like super in demand items all the time, you're probably going to have to be promoting at some rate.
Yes.
So I think that's probably been the biggest change in the last 5 years. And that's probably like, let's say 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Could be wrong on that timeline, but that's what it feels like to me. Maybe even 4.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest change. And I feel like that's just going to continue. So it's really important that in those circumstances, you are looking at your bottom line and you're understanding that when you're making those decisions to buy something, I'm going to pretty much lose 15 to 20% straight off the top list, maybe even more if you need to promote higher than that.
Yes.
Before you've done anything. So
Yes.
yeah, and going back to the cup, if you're losing 20% of this cup and you paid $20 for it, you've lost money.
Yes.
So I think that's probably the biggest change. I think there's a lot of competition, but I also think there's a lot of opportunity. What would you say?
Well, that's a big thing, and also to factor in postage costs as well.
Yeah.
So something that's always going to be worth understanding and being aware of is that every year, like, one, secondhand clothing, I think, is trending upwards. I think the next generation is buying more secondhand. Whether they're buying it on eBay or not, I don't know. Can't comment on that, right? But in terms of the postage costs are going up, right? eBay has got to make money, right? If we don't have eBay, if eBay don't make these changes and don't keep their investors in profit, like eBay shuts down and we all lose. So rather than concentrating on, okay, postage, I understand that the postage costs are going up. I understand that promoted listings and eBay needs to make their money, and I still need to keep putting in work and still need to improve. I think where a lot of people get caught is they start doing this instead of this.
Yeah. So
the more that we can take responsibility for our business and getting better, whether it's doing more product research, whether it's having these conversations where you and I exchange information and we're learning from each other and we're surrounding ourselves with people that help us build our businesses to get better, because it doesn't matter. Like, you look at any business across the world, any single industry, every year it gets harder to do business.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is we can get better at a higher rate than what the costs going up are. So let's say inflation like mildly goes up 10%. You and I can improve at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 year on year. Like, if we look at your YouTube, 500 YouTube videos in, what is your multiplication on from start to finish? You know what I mean? Like, you've gone 500 videos worth of views. Like, that is way better than 10% year on year. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I agree.
Yeah. What do you reckon about that?
100%. I was thinking back to what I was saying and trying to put forward is like, those things are going to happen, right? So
Correct. Inevitable.
Understanding and being able to pivot or adjust or learn more is what you need to be doing. So all those changes are going to happen around you. Yes, postage has gone up. Like, we've pivoted our postage system from mostly free to mostly paid now because the postage component was becoming too high a cost within the item. So we just removed that from the item and made it like, yes, this is the postage cost. And then people know what they're paying for the item, not like, oh, they're charging $30 for this shirt with free postage. They're charging $20 for the shirt. And I know that $9.95 of that is the postage cost. So we've pivoted away from almost all free to plus, so that our customers are more aware of what we're charging rather than kind of trying to hide it within the item.
I think also in Australia, like, because I've always run paid postage since the beginning. I think that as Australian consumers, we understand that we have to pay postage on top. I think there is, comparing us to other countries is like, there is certain things. And also the other part of it is if we're not paying for that postage to get it domestically, then if it's something we really want, and that's what it comes down to. If the item is something I really want, I don't care how much I'm paying for postage.
No.
I want the item.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
there's exceptions to that rule, and there's categories where most of your competition is going to be doing free. So maybe you have to do that as well.
100%. Like USB cords or like iPhone earbud.
A lot of books. Books seem to be a category which is a lot of free postage.
100%.
And you know, some of those higher end items that people paying $500, $600, $700, you can afford to cover the postage.
Yeah, they don't care about another $5 on postage, really. So especially if like yours is the only one listed. So yeah, going back to that, it's like it's very dependent on what category you're selling in.
There's no one rule for anything, which is the challenge, but also the reward of eBay.
Yes, 100%. So what is the most niche item you've ever sold? Something just like odd, strange, cool, something maybe you didn't know you could even sell?
Yeah. I think the strangest thing, man, it's been some weird ones. I sold some like sailing, I don't even know what they were. That's how niche it is. I think it was like the coupling that goes on like the winches on a sailing boat.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know where they came from. They came.
And how much did you get for them?
They sold for like $300, like something like
300.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
Yeah. But there's been plenty of things along the way that are a little bit more common that are still weird. Like the Niagara is this like brand of like massage equipment that used to get sold door to door back like 70s, 80s, 90s. And if you can find their stuff like in boxes, and they have these like really, they kind of look pretty dodgy. They look very similar to this, and they're a massage gun.
Yes.
Right?
Sus.
But they're actually a massage gun. Okay. So if you can find them, we've sold 3, 4, 5 of them over the time, and again, $200-$300. It's just like
unreal.
So many little niche things out there that you can sell, and I think that's why I like eBay, is because you don't have to be pigeonholed to a certain niche, but you can if you want to. Yes.
Can you speak on like, so say you come across the sailing winches that you didn't really know about. How do you know to comp that? How do you even begin the comping process? How do you even do your product research on something so niche like that?
I think for me, that was presented to me by someone that was way more knowledgeable than me. Okay. So they knew that was potentially had value, and they sold it to us as a bulk lot. So it was kind of like, you will learn something about this because I'm going to sell it to you, right?
Yeah. So they almost gave you the education on what it was while you were buying it.
Yeah. And I think that happens along the way, depending on the people you surround yourself with and the people that you deal with. You're going to learn certain things. And the more you can expose yourself to those situations, you might learn a new category that you're like, hang on, like that's the category I want to be in, because no one else is really touching this. There's good margins. I have some sort of understanding of it because of something that's happened to your life. Maybe you understand cars. I don't understand cars parts at all, right?
Yeah.
But someone that understands cars could make an absolute killing selling cars parts, because they're everywhere
100%.
If you know where you're looking, and they sell for stupid money.
Yes.
So there's all these things out there that you can kind of leverage to your advantage and learn as you go. You don't have to know everything from the start, but if you can know something and build on that knowledge, then you're 10 steps ahead already.
100%. So what is one of the coolest things you've ever found? Not necessarily the most expensive, but something that's like you've thought, wow, this is awesome. Because I know you're a big crows collector. So even something you found for the personal collection. I haven't found
my grail in the crows collection yet. I'm still waiting to find a really high-end play issue or match worn, but I have found some pretty cool stuff over the years. Like even just yesterday, day before the video that just came out, I found a Scanlan Theodore lamb's lamb
wool or lamb leather or something.
Lamb leather, jacket. It was like purple, and $20 it was. I knew it was going to be worth money, so I grabbed it. Got home, Jazz sent me a comp for $375.
Right? Unreal.
So
unreal.
those sorts of things, like,
And it was just sitting on the rack, right? Like,
sitting on the rack. Yeah.
and because you
Like,
knew what it was, like, what tipped you off? Was it the brand? Was it
brand,
the
brand
feel?
material, the look, the style, like all those things that I was talking about before, all indicated that that was going to be a really good item. I knew $20 for that type of item was more than fair, so I just put it in the basket, knowing that I
So
was
you didn't even comp at that time because you
didn't
already
need to.
had the knowledge in here to
Correct.
know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's the same. Like, I don't want to say probably 80% of stuff I pick up now is that, right? Because I've
Yeah.
done the reps, I've touched the items, I know materials and brands and types of things that are going to have money, but there is still that 20% that I pick up that I'm like, oh, this has potential because of this indicator, but I don't know
Yeah.
the brand, I don't know the item specifically. So yeah, that's a good example. We found a Niki Lauda jacket which sold for $2,000. We've
Yes.
found one of my
Can you
favorite.
talk about your ink haul?
Yeah. That was the very first video on our channel, was the ink haul, and the only reason I ever shared that video was because I was like, this is different. Like,
It's so
haven't really,
strange that you're like, I haven't seen this before. I
I haven't,
haven't seen anybody make this video
I
before.
haven't seen Cody Orgill pick up a whole thing of ink before. He buys bits and
Yes.
pieces, but
Yeah.
this is different.
Yeah.
So we came across this ad on Facebook Marketplace. So again, it wasn't like we walked up anywhere. I'm looking at all different avenues to find items, and I saw this printer place closing down, and they were like, closing down sale, blah 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 blah. And I messaged them and I was like, hey, would there be like any opportunity that you guys would be looking to like liquidate all this stock in a bulk deal? And I was thinking about like how much time it would take them to actually sell each individual item. Like,
A long time, by the way.
yeah, a long
Yeah.
time. And I was like, I knew there was good value in ink. I didn't have all the knowledge I needed to make the call. I think at the time we spent like, I don't know, maybe $3,000. I could be wrong on that, but somewhere around that. And that was a lot of money to us back then. Like $3,000 was like, we are
Well, you're at
never
the
going to.
beginning of your journey too, and it's like ink, like $3,000 on ink. What?
I was like,
Yeah.
we're never going to spend $3,000 ever again. Like, there's no chance. And I was like, man, is this the right call? Is this the right thing? And we went in there and I was like, all right, well, I can see from what I already know that I've sold. I know that that item goes for $100. I know that item goes for $200. And it was just a whole shop essentially. And what had happened? So
you'd sold some printer ink before that buy.
yeah, just like one or two here or there. Nothing serious, right?
Nothing crazy. Yeah.
Nah, not a whole shop. But
Yeah.
the situation that they were in was the people that own that shop, I think, had to leave the country for some reason. So someone else was left with that, right? They were left with all this stock, all this inventory that they had no need for. They didn't know what to do with it. So it was like, what if we come in, I give you a flat rate, we just take everything off your hands. You don't have to deal with anything. I'll take the good and the bad and I'll deal with it. And to them, that was amazing, right? Like, they had one person that was going to come on a certain day, clear it out for them. They didn't have to worry about it. And that honestly skyrocketed our eBay journey from a hobby to something that we could see potentially, because that $3,000 probably turned into, I don't know, $30,000-$40,000 over a period of
Insane.
3-4 months.
Insane.
So yeah, that's probably the coolest overall deal that I've found. It's not an item, but it's an overall deal.
Insane.
And it was early.
Yeah.
It was very early.
Big. Yeah. That's insane. So what are your thoughts, I guess, just to pivot again, what are your thoughts on live shopping?
I'm actually excited for the potential of Whatnot, and I know that they're betaing cards currently in Australia. I actually put our name forward to Whatnot as like, hey, I could sell pops on there because I have contacts that I could get pops from.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm excited for it. I'm also not sure of how Australia as a whole is going to pick up that whole culture. I think that America has a very different culture in that respect to us, in that there's almost, I don't want to say fandom, but there is a lot of kind of like, they want to support creators that they follow. So a lot of the big guys on YouTube and that have a Whatnot store, and they will, sell to a lot of their subscribers. And yes, people will come in and buy outside of that, but the core of their business is knowing their customer is their subscriber. They know what they want. They know that they can go to the bins and buy $1 item and sell it for 10.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have the same sort of like buying culture in that aspect, but I am excited to see what Whatnot can do, and maybe our culture changes a little bit. I think we had a real good shot at what was the company that came here? The Poshmark. We had a good shot at Poshmark. I don't think they really integrated well with the Australian market. They chose a poor shipping partner at the time, because it didn't scale to this whole of Australia. And I hope that Whatnot has a bigger impact on the Australian market. What do you think? Because I think it's a market that has so much potential, and I would love it to reach that potential. I just don't know what the Australian market is going to do with that potential.
Yeah, so I think like 2020 was interesting because obviously you had all your collectibles going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's inside, like the stimulus checks are coming out, so people have got spare money, so people are spending like crazy, right? So for the Australian vintage scene, at least, like that was huge for me, just seeing the lives going.
Remember that?
It wasn't a Whatnot situation. It was people like doing Instagram lives.
Yeah.
And like people would like bid in the comments, and then like the hosts would have to like pin the top comment. But it was also based off of like goodwill. So like if you bid and you didn't hold your word, like you would not be allowed in any more live streams.
Your name got around, you weren't allowed back.
Correct. Because like a small enough community, but there was also enough concentration and enough hype that people were all over.
I remember that. That was cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And I just think like moving forward, if we can, I don't know whether that hype returns, the same level of hype. But as you said, I think it's very specific to whether it catches on within Australia.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you and I could both stream on Whatnot, but if people are not leaving Instagram to go onto Whatnot to buy, it's like we've got to drive a lot of our own traffic.
Yeah.
And I think what America has as an advantage is that like they have a lot of natural traffic scrolling onto Whatnot. So even if you have a smaller creator doing their streams, they're still getting people popping in and just buying, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know whether Australia is going to have that, at least initially. For me, like I'm bullish on live shopping overall though.
Yeah.
Because I know like for somebody like me that's doing volume, and like I've got friends right now who are selling on Whatnot in America and are doing really well.
Killing it.
Right? So it is one of those things where I hope, this is going to be cool. And then I've also thought about like what would it take to run my own live streams and drive my own traffic and just do like a 2020 version where I am just pinning the comments. So this is something like I have thought about.
Yeah. I think with like AI integration and stuff, I know that's a topic that you got for a little bit later on, but I mean, there's so many possibilities, right? Like
100%.
Maybe you're not the guy pinning the comment, there's
maybe
things you can use.
Well, maybe I can just like hire somebody to pin the comment as well.
Yeah.
Like I was even thinking like having my two Instagram pages live stream against each other, and then have one phone be focused on the item and me being on the top. So kind of like how people will watch this.
Yeah.
Like me on the left, you on the right, or vice versa.
You're getting more.
I'm on one, and then I put the item on the other, so that I'm not just like holding the
both.
item up.
Yeah. You've got that better interaction. You got a better view. The customer gets better experience.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So I guess on trends, what are some trends you think people should pay more attention to? Maybe there's something that's underpriced at the moment and you think will go up in value. Maybe some collectible video games, some collectible consoles, that sort of thing, or even way beyond that. What are some things that people should pay attention to that you think will trend upwards?
Yeah, I've really been thinking about like what is the next like Nintendo 64, right? Like when I was a kid, Nintendo 64 was like, the thing that you wanted to get, and then you get to 30 and you have some expendable income, extra income. You're like, I'm going to get that N64 that I never got as a kid.
Yeah.
So what is that? What is that for kids 10 years ago? And I've heard a few people throw around stuff like Ben 10. I've heard stuff around like kind of Pokemon still, because it's kind of had those waves, and Pokemon's still smashing it right now. It's had some big dips and some big peaks, but I don't think that's going away. I've tried to think about like music artists that kind of were like underrepresented in merch. So I think like early Taylor Swift merch is obviously something that's just going to continue to peak out because she's going to continue to dominate the world, right? Like she's not going away anytime soon. That person that was kind of like, you know, younger when she first had started out is going to be looking for those early t-shirts now and ongoing because she's just growing and growing and growing. It is tough to predict some other things because I feel like we kind of entered the era of like mass production on a lot of things kind of around the early 2000s, 2000.
The bulk gilding.
Yeah. So I feel like it's going to be a little bit more niche than what we kind of saw in our kind of like, you know, buying era. But I do think there's going to be those common trends, the things that people had when they were a kid and now they're 30 to 40. As you move through the ages is always going to be something that people want.
That link to their nostalgia and their childhood.
Yeah, I don't think that's going away. I think that's just ingrained in everyone. It's been a theme for God knows how long with, you know, people buying stuff in that sort of pattern. So I guess if you can kind of try and reverse engineer that, you can kind of start picking out a few things. But I do think there is some differences in that. What do you think? Like, do you have anything that jumps out at you?
Well, what I've found most interesting is just Y2K clothing.
Yeah.
Like jean shorts that go beyond the knees and thinking about the way that like the fashion is just cycling.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, do we see flare jeans really kick off again? You know what I mean?
Because they kind of had their like 6 months in the sun, like 3 years ago, I think. But does that like, is another 2 years that resurgence of that or?
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. And the thing is like the changing between, okay, baggy pants for men specifically, just the fit. So you got like baggy men's pants and then you go to like skinny jeans and then you've gone back to baggy men's pants again. And so I guess, it's anybody's guess. For me, as you said, like you're looking at, what I found interesting was actually when the Last Dance documentary came out and how Michael Jordan vintage tees went crazy. So even the moments in culture where like, okay, a biopic is coming out about a certain artist or like a certain documentary is catching steam, like little things like that. Like I've thought about this as kind of like an asymmetric bet, and this might be some game for one person who's going to take action on this maybe, right? Is to look at the Netflix schedule of shows coming out over the next 24 months. Find out who's...
That Good Health book one that just came out for that Bell.
Yeah, like interesting, right? Like, so it's like almost paying attention to where culture is going or where you think culture is going and then understanding where does product align with that. Because had you had all those Michael Jordan t-shirts ready to go just before the Last Dance documentary came out, and then you started selling, like, you would have made bank. You would have made bank.
2 points on the, as you were talking, I was like, there's two things. So one, Stranger Things in like 15 years, I feel like it's going to have
Stranger Things every time that the new season comes out.
Yeah. But I also think like once it's done and then, And absolutely. When you said Michael Jordan, I just wanted to touch on like mindset. So when I watched Last Dance, there was one thing that stood out to me the most. Apart from him being an incredible sportsman, was the ability for him to trick himself into a situation. So there was one thing that he said about, I can't remember who the player was, right? But he knew he had to have a good game. He knew that if he didn't have a good game, like they were out, it was done, all over, no championship. And he pretty much told himself that this guy had been talking smack on him, right? This guy hadn't said nothing about him, ever.
Yeah.
Right? But he convinced himself that he had to show this guy that he was the best and that he was going to take his team to the championship purely by changing his mindset walking into this game. And I think not that you have to pretend someone's talking crap on you, but just being able to flip that switch and understand that your mind controls everything that you do is like game changer. Yes. And that was something that stood out to me in The Last Dance was his ability to do that on a regular basis and find something within himself that no one else could find.
What's all energy, right? So he was able to like stimulate that energy within
Yeah,
himself
he's
and then like
himself.
use it. Yeah, 100%. So with AI and automation changing e-commerce right now,
Yeah.
how do you think it will affect people buying and selling online?
It's already affecting buying and selling online in terms of there's people that are we're working with Shopfront right now, a company that are working alongside eBay to take a photo of an item. And I know that you have some experience with this with some of your close mates as well that have been working on it, and go through and describe that item, pull out all the information from the photos and create a listing for you with a click of a button.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like the most like clearest thing that I can see happening like now. Like that's happening like as we speak. We've been playing with it and we've spoken to some of your friends that are working on their own version of this. And that's going to make selling for anybody a lot more accessible, which means as a reseller, you have to know more and do more than the people that are just using AI to take a photo and propagate a listing. So you're going to have better product knowledge than that person. So you can pick a better item and get that sale over top of what they're picking. So AI is everywhere. It's starting to integrate into things. There's already AI stuff going on in terms of like trying to pick up fakes on eBay. There's AI in the background of eBay. There's AI descriptions. There's AI built into most things that we're touching with eBay now. You just may not know it. So I feel like for buyers, it's going to get better. I feel like we're going to get to a point where, and I've heard people talking about this in e-commerce spaces where platforms may not become the place people go to shop. It'll be like an AI agent, if you want to call it that, that's like, hey, I know you like these 25 different types of items. I saw one pop up on eBay over here. Is this something that you might want to shop through? So there's going to be potential for these linkages that don't currently exist for people to get access to your item. But it's also going to make selling more accessible. So I think you really have to be adaptive to that and maybe use AI for 80% of your process, and maybe 20% becomes the part that you do the human interaction, the price points, and really making sure that's right, getting your title right, and your specifics. But I think going forward, it's going to integrate. And I know that you've done a lot more digging in AI than I have, so I'm sure you can add a ton more on that than I can.
Yeah. Well, I guess my question for you is, I think something that you've been really able to do over the past, I'd say 24 months that we've spoken about, is you've gotten like really curious about that. And I think that a lot of people are not curious. A lot of people are trying to really just pretend it doesn't exist. So I guess as somebody who has really started to learn more and really invest that time to be open-minded to that, what is your message to somebody who maybe hasn't spent any time mucking around with a chat GPT, maybe like Googling anything? What is your message to that person who, like this is going to affect regardless of whether they research it or not?
I think I understand the I guess hesitancy.
The hesitancy.
Yeah. And like I said, like I'm still very young in that journey. Like you've gone pretty deep, and I've been watching a lot of your stuff, and you kind of gave me the tip in the right direction to do it. And I'm very baseline. Like I understand what the potential of it is, and I understand what it's currently integrating with, but I don't have that high level like view of what's going to fully occur. Where I feel like you probably have a little bit deeper knowledge of that. But I would say it's really easy to start with just ChatGPT. Like there's versions that, are very easy to interact with. I think some of them are even like free for like, a certain amount of questions potentially.
Yeah.
I'm on the paid version, so I'm not sure what that looks like now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to start asking it questions and understand what its process of thinking is and testing that process of thinking. So I even tested it just based on like, if I was to do this, what would the outcome be? So I'm using it currently with my workout stuff, which sounds ridiculous, but I said, this is what I am now. This is my weight. This is my height. This is my BMI. This is my current workout schedule. This is what I want to do. What would you suggest to me is the best course of action for me to hit this goal? And can you create me a workout strategy and an eating plan that would get me to that goal within this amount of time? And within like 5 seconds, it's spitting out a full meal plan for me, for my body type, for my situation. And it even asks you, is there any certain foods that you like to eat that I could potentially incorporate into this schedule? Or is there any foods that I've provided to you that you don't like that I could supplement for something else? And then it goes further than that. And it's like, okay, if you did that and you stuck to this routine and this calories and you did all these metrics and you followed this routine, in 12 weeks, your expected weight range would be between this and this, and your expected muscle mass would be gone from this to this. So the amount of like deep detail that you can get from AI is insane. And I was saying to Jazz yesterday, like I was talking to, I don't even remember what I was talking to it about, but I was like, something that I've noticed recently is it's actively asking you leading questions as well now. So not only is it responding to what you've asked, but it's taking into consideration all the information that you've input into it and going,
yes,
what about this? So it's doing that and this thing, which to me is like insane. Like for a computer to be able to go, this information is what you inputted. I'm having this thought about the information you've input. What is your take on this? And then adjusting its thought pattern based on what information you've input into it is, the opportunities there are insane.
Absolutely.
And
100%
I want to point out
agreed.
that you've gone to the next level where you have used AI to translate some of your videos into Chinese and then use that program to push that information across to, what's their social?
Red Note.
Yeah, Red Note. So you've essentially used AI to test A and B across 2 different platforms at the same time.
Yes.
Right? Like where?
So I guess it comes down to, and something you touched on, and this is the part I don't think people understand fully, which is what you can do is you can train it on yourself. So obviously there is privacy concerns. Obviously there is certain things like you're not going to want to share, obviously, right? But besides all of
bank
that,
account.
but so that's something that maybe we progress into the future. But if we just come back to the present, right, which is the things that I'm sharing with it right now is if I use it for 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, I've given it so much data. If I'm using it every day with just basic questions with like, hey, what should I do here? Hey, what's something I haven't thought about here? If I'm giving it all of this, what it is doing is exactly what you said, is it's collecting all that data, keeping it in mind when it then speaks to you in the future. So it's like, rather than you and I having a conversation, having just met, because I have so much context, and that is the word, because I have so much context of your journey, I can then tailor my questions. We can have a far better conversation because I understand where you've been, where you want to go, what you're working on. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the thing that a lot of, I think, people who haven't jumped in yet, or maybe they've only used it briefly, is they haven't built that context with the AI yet. So so it's not a question of, this AI is not helping me. It's like, nah, it might actually just be a skill issue.
Yeah.
Like you may not have given it enough data, enough context. Correct. And so I've actually been talking to Cody about this recently, which is we can give it prompts to I'll give a couple examples, but one example which is really good, which is based on everything you know about me, please roast me. And what this is going to do is going to give you like, it's going to poke at your sore spots.
I don't know if I can
right?
handle that.
And see, that's where it comes down to. It's like,
I'm not there
but
yet.
because, because it is like, I mean, it's not, nothing is ever, I guess it's a tool, so it's neutral, right? And how you use it is whether it's a positive or negative.
Right.
But in that case, if we are front facing, if we are building audiences, if we are expecting other people to say things and try and get under our skin, doing a simple exercise is, hey, AI, everything you know about me, which is, you know a lot about me more than most people, right? Roast me. Give me like, and that as a prompt is like, you can keep saying, all right, be harsher, be harsher, be harsher. And I don't, listen, let me just say, I don't recommend that to everyone because it'll probably hurt your feelings.
You need to be
right?
in the right
But that
mind.
is,
yeah.
correct. And once again, it's a tool. It's a tool. It's a positive or a negative. You know what I mean? How you use it. Another one, which is like slightly easier to use, which is like, based on everything you know about me, like what are some potential moves that I should make that will get me closer to my goals?
Yeah.
And it can really help you in that aspect.
I have an example for this. I'm not gonna say the item, but there is. I found a niche that I'm kind of trying to push more into, right? And I understood where I could get that product where I live, but I wanted to understand what the wider scope of that product was. So I went onto ChatGPT and I gave it some information about what I was trying to do and how I was trying to scale that product and what sort of price point I wanted to like kind of be around. And I was like, can you please provide me potential sources of this product within SA, Australia, and the world? And within like 10 seconds, it had broken it down. It had given me context to who those companies were, what the potential relationships with those companies were, how large those companies were. So further to that, I then said, out of these 50 companies that you provided me, can you please identify the top 10 with the highest, I guess, global market share of this product? And then it came back to me and said, well, these 5 in Australia, these 5 internationally, and maybe try this one as well.
Yeah.
So it had essentially created a whole sourcing plan for me based on a few prompts. And the work that I would then have to do is start emailing, calling, and doing the work, but I didn't have to do any of the research.
Yeah.
So
it takes the research off you didn't have to spend however much time Googling and looking up, and it's literally just collecting it all. And the beautiful thing is it's searching the entire internet to get that information. Now,
absolutely.
Is it right every single time? No, but that's where we come in to double check to make sure. And
if you look up the company and that company doesn't do the thing you're doing, you're like, well, okay, that's a miss. But
that's your due diligence anyway before you're reaching out to them.
9 times out of 10, it was spot on. And I haven't used that data yet, but the data's there and it's ready to go.
Ready to go. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so I guess moving on to our final section, 4th section, free game. What is one mistake you see beginners make over and over again? Whether it's in eBay or in business in general.
I think it goes back to that trying to replicate what someone else is doing, because you never have the same set of restraints or advantages or contacts or whatever it may be. You never have the exact same set of rules or conditions that you're working in. So it's fine to look at anyone on any platform and take the parts of that story that you can use. But I would highly recommend that you don't just try to replicate exactly what they're doing unless you have very similar sets of circumstances. Like, there are things that you can replicate.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is the only information that you should be relying on. And I feel like when people watch YouTube, whether that's us or anybody else, people will focus on the parts they want to focus on. And if you're not focusing on the full picture, you're never going to have the full picture, because you can't put every single part of your day on YouTube unless you've got a camera just following you around and there's 24 hours of footage, right?
Yes.
8 hours of that would be pretty boring sleeping, but it's, I think it's really detrimental that you take one thing and just try to copy it. You really need to lean into what your advantage is, and everyone has an advantage. You just need to work out what that is. Maybe you know amazing things about specific types of sporting equipment, and maybe that's what you focus on. Maybe you know the car stuff. Maybe you know vintage tees. Maybe you know printer ink. I don't know. Maybe you know something that no one else really understands. That's your advantage, and lean into that. I'm not saying you have to only sell that, but that's a really good starting point. And I think if you're just going to follow what everyone else says, you're going to be doing what everyone else is doing, and you have no X factor. There's no difference.
Yes. 100%. What is a small tweak that online sellers can make that would significantly improve their workflow efficiency, sales volume, or overall business? One small tweak.
I think being honest with yourself. Like,
Ooh.
it's not even like, it's not something you do, right? But me looking at my business, I'm like, all right, yeah, we've got all this stock and 80% of it is great, but there's 20% that needs to go, right? There's 20% that's there. It's not adding value to my store. It's not selling. Either it was a bad buy or the market's changed, or, but really looking at what you have, and it doesn't have to be stock, maybe it's opportunity, but really being honest with yourself about what your business is doing, why you're doing it, and then reflecting on that and understanding where you're losing. Because without that, it doesn't matter what change you make, nothing's going to improve. So I think it's not necessarily click this button and all of a sudden your sales are better, or click this button and your business is better, but it's about reflecting on your own mistakes and your own shortcomings that will help you grow. Can you add something to that? Is there something you would say?
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think you took it a level deeper than I would have said. I would say, what's one small tweak? I guess spending a couple minutes every day at the end of your workday to clean up. Like, declutter your desk.
Yeah,
and like a lot of people are not gonna like, that's basic, that's too simple, but you'll see over days and days adds up. If you want to take it one step further, every day try and remove one thing from your workspace that you won't need in the future. Because what will happen after 30 days, you'll be scrambling to find something to remove. But what's happening is you're making your entire system more efficient just by removing that one thing.
Yeah.
So I think together, be honest with yourself and clean up your space. Bangers.
You're going to go far.
Bangers. All right. So let's say you had to start from zero. No connections, no capital, no storage. What are your first moves?
I think my first move is find stuff that I already have that I don't need.
Yes.
And is valuable.
Yes.
And then it's about 95% of people have phones, so you don't need anything else other than a phone to start. Like that's all you need. Somebody take a photo, somebody create a listing. So you don't need to invest anything apart from that. You can take your items to the post office, fill it out over the counter. Yes, it's going to cost you more, but that's what you need. I think it would be selling that stuff as quickly as I could. So I'm probably going to take a few hits on a few things. Like I'm going to take a 30-40% offer on a few things, but I'm going to get that cash flow going. So I'm going to start building up a bit of a bank. And then I think your step 2 is research. So before you go out and spend that $200 that you just made, while you're making that $200, start working out what's in your area. So maybe you go to a market on a Sunday. Maybe you go to the 5 closest op shops that you got around you. Maybe you look up recycling centers and you know some guy who cleans up rubbish on the side of the street and he can provide you stock. I think it's starting small, but intentionally. So it's just not throwing money at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's about testing your area, working out what you can get, because you're not going to be able to go to a wholesaler straight up the bat and go, I want $5,000 worth of Carhartt jeans, right? That's not possible unless you're bankrolled and, good for you. But that's probably going to be bad as well, because you're probably going to buy the wrong type of Carhartt. You don't have the reps. You don't have the information to help you make the decision. So do the research. Then when you've got the research, you've got what you can get in your area, you understand what sells in those categories, then you can go out and spend that money wisely and understand what the sell-through and the realistic sale price for that item is that you're going to sell. Not shooting for the stars, the golden rainbow of all of it, but what is this item actually selling for and how regularly? And then it's just a matter of rinse and repeat. Get better, learn more, branch out, and start building these contacts like we said before, trying to work out ways of helping other people, because then they're going to help you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Banger. All right. So what is one mindset or habit that separates successful eBay sellers? Sorry, let me ask again. What is one mindset or habit that separates successful eBay sellers from those who struggle?
I think commitment and consistency. So eBay's not a short game. There's no, unless you get really lucky and you find that Lamborghini parked in a garage somewhere. There's no quick money. Like, it's all about putting in the effort, putting in the reps, understanding what it's going to take to get there. So I think that's just the key, is just being able to show up regularly, consistently, and learning as you go.
Absolutely.
What do you got? What do you got there? What's your words of wisdom?
Commitment and consistency. Absolutely. I think those are the fundamentals. And so I would say, like, what is one mindset or habit? I would say the mindset would be taking responsibility, understanding that your business will grow at the extent that you grow. If you stop growing, you will find yourself in a plateau and your business will be in a plateau. As much as we want to think that our businesses are separate from us, and that is a step further down the line, but at least in the beginning, our business is a reflection of us. So if we continue to learn, if we continue to get better, if we continue to improve our process and our workflows, then our businesses will get better, and we will find that, over time, that compounding, that consistency, that commitment really adds up over time. The habit would be just continually learning. As long as you're learning, you'll pick up things that are accidentally great for you. Like, you'll come across those sailing wenches you were talking about. And that's one thing too, is like, if you are continually learning, there will be times where you get lucky, but that getting lucky was actually intentional because you laid the foundations and you created that luck for yourself by being curious and understanding that there's things that you don't know yet. And moving forward with that, there's a lot of things that, like, while you're learning, you will understand that there's more that you don't know. The more we learn, the more we know we don't know.
Yeah, that's probably one of the greatest things about doing what we do, is I don't feel like there's ever a cap to what you can learn. Because
100%.
Even if you just decide, like, clothing's my gig, right? There are thousands and thousands and millions of brands out there. And then a new brand will come in, and all of a sudden that brand will become the new hot item. And then a new type of material might pop into the market, which all of a sudden will change the game again. Like, it's never stagnant. And brands drop in price, go up in price, change with the market, styles change. Like, you can never stop learning. And if you do,
100%,
I think you're probably lying to yourself.
100%. The moment you think you know it all is when everything starts going downhill.
You're behind the game already.
100%. So what is a eBay specific business lesson that you've learned that would apply to any entrepreneur, regardless of whether they sell product on the internet or not?
I think the clear one that I can say is, like, no one's going to respect your business like you respect your business. So when you create something for yourself, you're pouring your heart and your soul into that business. Like you said, it's a reflection of you. So unless you can find someone that is like your twin, then it's going to be very hard for them to take that on as their responsibility. So through some hard learnings, I think what I understand now is that regardless of my expectation of how a situation was going to play out and everyone's goodwill of that situation, that person could never fulfill that part of my business the way that I would fulfill that part of my business. And that's not saying they're any worse or better, or it's just different. So their focus is on something else. Their life is different to yours. Their responsibilities at home are different to yours. Again, the same set of rules don't exist. So I think for me, it's like, if you're going to go into a business, it's really about making sure that your goals and your understanding of what is going to happen align. And if you're going to go into a partnership, that's like, you built it from the ground up together. I think that's the only way that you can really be on the same page.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that applies to any business. Like they say don't work with family because, it's hard, right? Like you have a very distinct idea of what that is, and someone else's idea of what that is going to be completely different. Does that make sense to you?
100%. 100% makes sense.
What would you say?
One specific business lesson, I think, listen, look after people, they'll look after you. I think there is this idea of a lot of people focus, we've already spoken about this, a lot of people focus on what's in it for me. But the reality is if you're somebody that can make your suppliers rich, they're going to keep wanting to bring you the best stuff.
Why are they going to go anywhere else?
Exactly. And so a lot of people are looking to make money. It's like, well, focus on who you can make money for. Make other people rich, because you'll get a percentage of that.
If you're putting food on their table, they're going to bring you to the table.
100%. And it's one of those things, it's like, I've thought about this a bit, which is entrepreneurship is a lot like a tribe. Like you're building a tribe. You need to make sure everybody eats. If you don't look after the hunters, right, they're not going to bring the good stuff back. They're going to eat it before they bring it to you. If you don't look after the people that are preparing the food when it comes in, like they're not going to prepare it properly for you, right? And so it's our responsibility to look after the entire tribe and to make sure everybody eats.
It's an ecosystem, right? Like if you're not looking at the ecosystem fails.
100%. 100%. I guess this is almost the final question. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice before you started on this journey, what would you tell him?
Maybe I would say not to take yourself so seriously, because that's not probably the right word, but don't be afraid to be challenged. In that, like, there's going to be people on any journey that don't align with your goals or your ethos or your mentality, and that's okay. Like that, it doesn't have to be a you and them. It doesn't have to be they're right, you're wrong, or you're right, they're wrong. I feel like there's a lot of gray area, and that's something that I struggle with sometimes, because I'm very much like black and white. Like I'm very much analytical. I'm very like, this is what the numbers are saying, but there is gray. So I feel like telling myself to be okay with gray is probably what I would teach myself.
Awesome.
What would you say to the
one piece of advice? Honestly, listen, I like how things have played out. Have things taken longer than I expected? Absolutely. Have I crushed all the goals that I thought I would have already done by now? Not yet, but I will, right? The one piece of advice I'd give my younger self is just listen to yourself. Keep on going. You're right. Just stick with it. That's it.
I think that's a really hard thing to do as well.
The beautiful thing is once you're on the path, it's like, because if you told them something different and they knew different, then the journey that you're on now is different. Like I think a lot of things come together on purpose, and those things, like, always end up having a reason, or always end up having the outcome that you can't see all the good stuff coming for you yet.
Yeah, no, I
Put
think
it that
that's
way.
right.
All right. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Brad, to close out, I'm just noticing your preview's lagging a bit. I don't know what's happening, but
Yeah,
to close out,
yours is dropping out.
as long as you can hear me, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So just to close out, what are your next moves, and where can people follow you?
Oh, we've got a few ramps that are currently being testing. So we're kind of thinking the warehouse may not be the future. We've got until June in the warehouse, so we're kind of thinking of selling our property, buying a bigger property, building some pretty substantial shed size objects on there. But that
Awesome.
there's a very linear set of things that have to happen for that to occur. I think Stockbox is going to be a big part of what we're going to offer. And I think that we're really pushing out into some spaces that could really create some long-term opportunities for people. And I really wanted to provide something that I hadn't seen done at scale in Australia. Like there's obviously wholesalers out there that are targeting the higher buying prices, but I hadn't really seen too much at that lower end. And yes, it's difficult and it's not perfect, and we are trying to, make it be as good as it possibly can for people. We've taken on sorting everything now, so that's our sole responsibility. So there's no kind of like third party involved where there can be that kind of like loss of interpretation and all that. So I think Stockboxes has a good future. I hope that 2AussieThrifters has a good future, but I also hope that we can find a way to realize our travel dreams as well and connect with more people around Australia, because we built some great friendships through YouTube, and some of those people we've met in person, some we haven't. So yeah, I really hope that all three of those things can somehow coexist, which is tough. Like I'm really asking for everything, but I feel like we have the ability to make it happen. Yeah,
Absolutely. And
what's
Brad,
next for you apart
what's
from
next for me? What's next for me?
killing the music
Listen,
game?
just keep doing the reps. Stay consistent, change nothing, and continue with immaculate consistency. Obviously, I've just put the YouTube video out, so I want to put more YouTube videos out. I want to keep listing on eBay. Obviously, I want to build up Castle or Select with vintage. Also, just really building the momentum with content and putting stuff out. And obviously more conversations like this where I'm able to document the conversations that I've been having. Because you and I have had many variations of this exact conversation. And I hope that somebody watching this can actually partake in that, because I know that there's a lot of things that you and I have said within this conversation that's going to potentially help people.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
honestly, just keep it pushing.
I think you're a very good tool for dragging information out of people and presenting it in a way that's palatable.
Dragging the information out.
Yeah, because I think it's really hard, especially for myself, to put myself in the position of someone starting again, because I'm so far down the track that I've lost connection to that, and I struggle to put what those things are into place. So I think the more of these conversations you have, whether that's eBay life, your focus and your mental commitment are going to show through in all those conversations. So I think it matters what you talk to people about. I think it's going to be successful.
Thank you very much, Brad. Appreciate you, bro. All righty. And so, Brad, where can people follow you?
Well, we're all over the place. So 2AussieThrifters on Instagram and YouTube, Stockbox on Instagram as well now. I encourage you guys to get in contact with us if there's lines that you're looking for. But yeah, YouTube's definitely our main one. We try to put out a video a week, but we're always available to chat on Instagram as well. So yeah, wherever you want to be, we'll be there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for taking the time today, Brad. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate it.
Easy. My guy.